Hello, and welcome to Temple of the False Pod, where our decks are not optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun. I'm Andy.
I'm Bruce.
And wow, we've made it to episode 5 of this season. We're halfway through the season. Feels like last week we were just beginning the season.
It feels that way.
I wonder why.
Yeah. A little behind the scenes. We don't necessarily film these all in order.
But we're episode 5, halfway through the season. Episode 95 overall. That's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
So this week we are talking about, this week is a Temple's Treasures. And for those of you who don't know, Temple's Treasures, we pick a color and we pick a card type. And then we talk about cards that we think get not enough play or are super niche. I mean, we've got like 2 restrictions. It's under 2,000 decks on EDH Rec.
Yes.
And it's before 8th edition. So older cards, which is probably why they don't see much play, because there are newer and probably better versions.
Exactly. Now, they can have reprints.
Yes.
So if something gets printed recently, that could still be listed. However, if it gets printed recently, it's probably because it's at least decent.
Yeah.
Like an overall decency, which means that the numbers on EDH Rec go way up. So it's not often when you see one of our cards get a reprint that's recent, just because it means the EDH Rec numbers go through the roof.
I'll posit this. If it's got a recent reprint and it's still under 2,000 decks on EDH Rec, we're probably going to have to stretch on making it good.
So now, Andy, I know that in the last few seasons, I know we covered white sorceries, we covered black sorceries, we covered red sorceries and green sorceries.
Yep.
Which leads me to believe
that we're on to the next type.
Yeah, that we're talking about enchantments this week.
No, enchantments was the first 5 seasons.
Yeah, that's why we're going to guilds.
Okay.
Yeah, we got us covered for years.
Yeah, so if you couldn't guess, we are doing blue sorceries this week. We each brought a handful of cards to the table, our respective desks, and I think that's enough ado. I would like to say thank you to all our new listeners who this is their first Temple's Treasures. Welcome.
If you're going to go back into our Wayback Machine and listen to other podcasts, especially if you're new to Magic, I really recommend the Temple's Treasures. Even more so than some. I mean, you should listen to all of it, but the Temple's Treasures one, you're going to get some ideas for cards that you are unlikely to ever see, unless you're actually looking for them. These are not cards that are going to show up in other people's decks. They're just because they're just infrequently seen, because they haven't come out and they haven't had a chance to play. People haven't had a chance to play with these cards haven't played with these cards in such a long time that quite often they can be a little bit of a surprise. And it's always nice to have a little something different in your deck as opposed to what everybody else is running. So
yeah,
take a look. Yeah.
So I guess I'll start.
Sure.
I know that you have a few more than I do. We after 8 seasons, our 9th season, we eventually ran into overlap. I wouldn't be surprised if we had overlap here. With our red sorceries, we had overlap. Blue,
right, and I will say that most of the blue, like a lot of the cards that I looked at and thought, ooh. Then I punched it up on EDH Rec and discovered, everybody already knows about this, and that's really not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to introduce you to some cards you haven't heard of. So we wanted to go down that route. Having said that, I feel like blue had a lot of the same issues that red did. Blue is all about draw a card and bounce. And in the early days, that's what blue did over and over and over again.
There's also a chance we don't have any overlap, and I could probably cut this whole part. So we'll see. We'll
see.
My first card is Drain Power. I love this card. It's blue, sorcery, of course. Target player activates a mana ability of each land they control. Then that player loses all unspent mana, and you add the mana lost this way. Basically, what it's saying is just start using your opponent's lands, because even if they tap it in response to this to put the mana in their mana pool, the mana pool gets to join yours, and it's interesting. It's interesting that this doesn't see more play. Because the only way around it is to cast spells and to use abilities, which, sure,
Right.
but then you're also just then forcing your opponent to do that. This is a great way to, A, bait out a counter, or B, get around a counter, because they will have no more land up to cast said mana, except for artifacts. This doesn't get around treasures, and this doesn't get around, like, mana rocks, or mana dorks for that matter. But I think it's fun to think about. I think you generally see more people trying to be most efficient with their mana. So like, there aren't going to be a lot of times that this gathers like a huge amount of mana. But I also know that like toward the end game, some people can start to go a little hellbent, run out of cards, and if they're out of cards, it's easier to take that mana from them. So this could be very well like a game-winning spell.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think you're more using this to stop them from having mana. There are going to be times when you're not going to get an extra 10 mana, but you are, like you said, you're stopping them from being able to cast spells, and that's big.
Yeah,
that's
especially if it's the person
you are setting up for your monster turn.
Especially if it's to the person to your right.
Yeah.
So like the person right before you, and then all your opponents also have a chance to do something without as much, pizzazz.
Right. Now I will say this card and the card that I'm going to discuss after this card are both I think they're both weakened a little bit with the volume of treasures that show up in the current format.
I think it is less niche than some of the cards that we're going to talk about today, but I think that for 2 blue, it does some great things. So
how many decks?
977. 977
Perfect.
on EDH Rec, and yeah, probably
Very
more
nice.
than the card you're about to talk about.
Just a little bit more, and mostly because I think Drain Power is definitely better than the card I'm about to talk about. So I'm going to talk about Piracy. Piracy is also a sorcery. It also costs blue, and it says until the end of the turn, you may tap lands you don't control for mana. Spend this mana only to cast spells. Yeah, I can tap an opponent's mana.
Yeah.
Okay. So in response, the opponent just taps the mana.
Right.
Taps the land before you can. The difference with Piracy as opposed to Drain Power is with Piracy, you're never getting any mana.
Right.
Your opponents will either counter it or tap out. The difference, though, is that Piracy doesn't specify one player. Drain Power specifies one player, but you're getting their mana. You are actually getting the mana. Piracy, you're never going to. Piracy is just saying, everybody just stop. I'm doing my thing. You're just going to let me do it, and then we're going to move on. That's all Piracy does. Now, in the old days, when there was mana burn, you might get a lot more mana out of this one because people would be a little more hesitant to actually tap out, especially if they didn't have a place to put the mana. Because then they would take damage for all of the mana they tapped. But with mana burn gone, Piracy and Drain Power are both far less powerful than they used to be. But, well, actually, that's not fair. Drain Power isn't. But Piracy definitely is. But, like I said, if you're looking to open up the board, to have that turn where you get to do whatever you want, Piracy is great. And in light of what you were saying, that player to your right, everybody else is untapping before that player does. So you, the next person, and the next person, everybody gets free reign over that person because they've tapped out. They've got no way to stop anything, barring the obvious,
right.
no mana required spells. I'm not going to go through all of it. But realistically, you're getting a free shot. So you do it and you take your free shot. So Piracy is in 289 decks. So, which makes perfect sense. Drain Power should definitely be in more decks because you are getting mana from it.
It's exciting.
Right.
My next card.
Yes.
It's called Juxtapose.
We have overlap.
Aha! Juxtapose, I read probably like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, oh my god, this is kind of cool. 3 and a blue. You and target player exchange control of the creature you each control with the highest mana value. Then, exchange control of artifacts the same way. If 2 or more permanents a player controls are tied for highest, their controller chooses one of them. So, you can use this in a board state where you don't have anything, and you just get a thing, right? Oh, nope, never mind.
No, you have to have something.
Yeah, you have to have something. But
the key, of course, is that you are probably, you're only casting this when you've got
like a token.
A token.
You got a 1/1 token and a treasure token.
Right. You've got crap on board and you're making the swap. The other reason, I think the main reason why Juxtapose doesn't see as much play is because it requires you to do a creature and an artifact. So, it would be one thing if it was just swapping my most expensive creature for your most expensive creature, because you can wait until the board state hits that point and just be like, yeah, we're swapping. And that's easy to set up. It's a little harder to set up for creatures and artifacts because so many times it's like, I have to give up my, whatever.
Bolus's
I have to
Citadel.
give up an amazing. I have to give up an amazing artifact to get your amazing creature. And it's like, well, that's not really it's a trade, but did I really want to do that? So it requires a little more setup. But having said that, Juxtapose is great. I love this card. I mean, I think it's worth the setup.
Yeah. Something in the rules and notes information in Scryfall that piques my interest says, first creatures are exchanged, then artifacts are exchanged. It's possible that the same artifact creature may be involved in both exchanges. So it's not like something's chosen before both the exchanges are happening. One happens, and then it calculates again, and then it happens again. So, like, say Solemn Simulacrum could be the highest mana value creature, and then also that person, it comes to me, and then it could be my highest mana value artifact and goes back.
Right.
So, there is a bit of nuance that could be a little bit pedantic and frustrating to figure out just even holding the card. But I think it could really, like, I feel like the cost of that is greatly, I don't know, outweighed by the potential of this card, and I'm just surprised that it is currently in 270 decks out of the 945,000 it could be in.
Right.
It's just odd that it's not in more. I think part of that maybe because it's 4 mana or because it's a sorcery, but I mean, you could be getting, say, an Eldrazi Titan or something huge out of the deal. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The other note that I like to point out, if one of the players doesn't control a creature at the time of the exchange, at the time the exchange would be made, that part of the effect does nothing. So, if an opponent has a massive creature, there's nothing saying you have to wait until you finally get an artifact on the field, so that you guys can both make your exchange. In fact, it's probably better if you don't. So then you just swap whatever you can. So, and that's that's one way to limit the risk on how it goes now.
Especially now with 2022 we saw both Kamigawa Neon Dynasty and Brothers War, both with these huge artifacts, especially in blue.
Right.
And so it could be a little bit more, I don't know. I think that probably would deter you from playing this card in blue, because there could be more often times where you're trading down than trading up. So
right, yeah. So no, Juxtapose I think it's a great card. So my next card.
Ooh.
I'm gonna go with Ransack.
Okay.
Ransack is 3 and a blue. It says, look at the top 5 cards of target player's library. Put any number of them on the bottom of that library in any order, and the rest on top of the library in any order. First off, it says target player, so you don't have to use this on your opponent. You can use it on yourself if you want. And you don't have to use it on yourself. You can use it on your opponent. Anybody who's played, Jace the Mind Sculptor, I think.
Brainstorm.
Well, I was thinking of you can look at the opponent's top card.
Oh.
And then you can either put it back on top or put it on the bottom of their library. And there was no worse feeling when your opponent activates that ability, looks at the card, and goes, and puts it back down on top. In other words, that's no threat at all. So, with Ransack, I'm not looking at the top card. I'm looking at the top 5. So I get to look at the 5 cards and then look at your board state and say, yeah, you know what? I think he's just going to have to figure out how to make it work with 3 lands. And I'm going to take all the lands out and leave you with the other stuff. Or you can invert it. I'm going to leave you with only lands and put all the good stuff on the bottom, and you have to draw your way through this mess. And on the other end, it also means you can do it for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
So you can now set up... Right, dig 5 deep. I mean, you get rid of the crap. If you're looking for something in particular, you're going 5 deep, and then you can put 4 on the bottom and that on top. You can determine the order that you put the cards back on top. If you're lucky enough to be in a situation where you look at the cards and decide, no, I want to see all these cards, you still get to put them in the order that you want.
Yeah.
So you are optimizing as you draw. It's just a wonderful thing. I will say, one thing to keep in mind with Ransack is don't use it on an opponent who has a shuffle ability available, because then they'll just shuffle and not take whatever you've left them. And the other one, if you have a search land, please sack it first. You will be so sad after you've played Ransack, only to then immediately crack the land on the next turn and realize, oh, those cards I stacked up nicely are now all over the place. And I speak from experience on this, so just...
I've witnessed it.
Yes. So be careful. Be careful. But yeah, Ransack. Ransack, in case you're wondering, is only in 81 decks, and I understand why. It is a 4-mana spell, and it doesn't do anything.
You know what else is 4 mana?
It doesn't counter, it doesn't destroy, it doesn't do stuff, but it will set you up for turns to come.
Oh, never mind. I was gonna say, you know what else is 4 mana? Sylvan Library, but Sylvan Library, notoriously 2 mana.
2 mana.
Yeah. No, that's sick. Some good Ron Spencer art too.
Yes, there is. I will say, and Andy, I hope I'm not stomping on your next pick.
Oh, please don't. I mean, please do.
Cruel Fate is extremely similar to Ransack. It costs 1 more. It's 4 and a blue, and it says, look at the top 5 cards of target opponent's library. You put one of them in their graveyard and the rest on top of their library in any order. Okay. So it's a lot more restrictive, and if you've got an opponent who can do anything with their graveyard, you're handing them something.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more limitation to it, and that's why I kind of chose Ransack. I think it's just a better card.
Similarly, and if this is one of yours, let me know. It's not one of mine, but I did remember looking at this card. I Spy is kind of the same as Cruel Fate, but it's just the top one card. But it's only a single mana, while Cruel Fate is 5. Which makes sense. That's a linear progression.
Yeah.
So it's like surveilling for your opponent. Actually, I Spy can do target player as well, so it could even be yours. A blue mana surveil. Meanwhile, Ransack is kind of like scrying 5 for your opponent or for you. But and very quickly, Cruel Fate is in 27 decks. I Spy is in 79. So,
Andy, I think we're halfway.
We are halfway. I've got 2 more. I am assuming you have at least 10. So,
I certainly have 2 more cards that we can discuss.
So we're gonna take a quick break, and when we get back, we're gonna have some sweet cards for you, because that's our thing. We're doing that this week. We'll be right back. This episode of Temple of Falsepod is brought to you by Jace, the Mind Sculptor. Sculpting your mind.
Three cards in one.
Oh my god. This card just gets more nuts. Draw 3 cards and put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. That's the brainstorm. Yeah. For 0. Plus 2.
Right.
Look at the top card of your target player's library.
There we go.
Put it on the bottom, or you may put it on the bottom of that player's library.
Yeah.
-1, return target creature to its owner's hand, unsummon. Then -12, exile all cards from target player's library. Then that player shuffles their hand into the library. That sounds awful.
Yeah, it is. It is. If you're asked to do that, then you concede. Save yourself the agony of finishing off that game, because clearly...
Yeah, because now you have no more cards in your library except for the 3 that you had in hand.
Yes, bad things have happened. I'm sorry.
Oh. See, I've been saved from this card by playing in your meta.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just have to look at the price tag on that.
Hey, we're back. Temple's Treasures. We're talking about some underplayed old cards. Emphasis on old and underplayed. 8th edition came out 2001? Is that true?
Sure.
8th edition released 2003. So.
Okay. All right. So we got a solid 10 years worth of cards here.
Yeah.
Or considering
20.
the rate of release, we've got 3 weeks worth of cards.
Hate to break it to you. 2003 was 20 years ago.
That's okay, but it's 10 years from the start of the game. So we've got 10 years of cards that we're drawing from. But really, it's not 10 years, because anybody who's new knows full well that in 1 year, you get about, 20,000 cards? And it took almost 10 years. It took over 10 years to get that many cards. So realistically, we're drawing from 1 year's worth of cards.
Yeah.
Andy, what's your next pick?
My next pick, I just typed into Scryfall cards that came out before 8th edition.
Yeah.
6,330.
All right.
Nifty.
Yeah.
My next card is the Library of Latinam. It's another 4 and a blue. But it's a modal card. But you don't get to choose.
Way back then.
You don't get to choose. An opponent chooses 1. You either draw 3 cards at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, or you search your library for a card, put that card into your hand, then shuffle. Yeah, I like it. I like this is the type of tutor that I want to play. Maybe not necessarily 5 mana, but you can either get 3 cards out of it or the exact card you want. And generally, that's kind of what I want.
How often is an opponent going to give you or let you tutor for a card?
I don't know, but
I'm just trying to picture a scenario where I'd be comfortable with you getting the exact card you want, or having you draw 3 random cards.
As somebody who comfortably sits at third place most games, I would be willing to bet you'd let me go get the card that I need to help take out player who's in first.
Well, there you go. That's there. So you found a scenario where I think where this comes in, and I think that this is where it lands for a lot of the cards where you're giving your opponent the choice.
Yeah.
The goal is to find an opponent who isn't an opponent.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. To pick anybody who is wanting to help take down any sort of archenemy scenario. But I mean, at worst, you're getting 3 cards the next turn, which, like, yeah, I get that there's better rate for that. But I feel like it's a non-zero chance that you get to just go get the card that you want. And in blue, like, 5 mana isn't a whole lot. Like, blue and green are notorious for creating stupid amounts of mana.
Right, and this isn't even a card that requires a lot of particular colored mana.
Right.
1 blue and 5 others. When you get to 5 lands, you're going to have the mana for this.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, it's simple. People understand it.
Yeah.
And if you've got opponents who like to overthink things, then they're going to overthink it. And I don't know, like they're gonna screw it up, or they're gonna be like, "What are you trying to pull?"
Right. I will say that the phrase "you draw 3 cards" at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Every time you see a card that says "beginning of the next turn's upkeep," I would hazard a guess and say, "Oh, that's going to be a card from Alliances," because that was something that Alliances like to do. They didn't like to give you the card right away. I think the concern was that you were going to loop into some combo that was just going to keep going.
Yeah.
And this prevents that from happening because you don't draw the card until the next upkeep.
Is Arcane Denial from Alliances? It is.
Yes. Yeah. So, but do keep that in mind. It is easy to play this early. Get to draw your 3, play the rest of your turn, say go, and have forgotten that you played it. So, keep that in mind. Make sure you're drawing your cards. Delayed draws can always be a little tricky.
I'm a sucker for cards that allow your opponents to be part of your game. Whether it's making a choice like this, fact or fiction, those types of cards where it just they're making such a small impact on the game that could potentially screw you over, but I think that it's just a fun way to include everybody in on your turn rather than just have them sit there and go, okay, you drew 3 cards.
Yes.
Okay. This is definitely not a card that you want to have in your hand when you're down on land, when you need to tutor for that land, and they just allow you to draw 3 cards on the next upkeep, so then you can't play the land immediately. But, it's just a goofy little card that I'm like, ooh.
Oh, yeah, no, this is, it's a nice setup, so.
This card, Born in Alliances, reprinted in 6th edition, is in 387 decks. It's about 35 cents.
Okay. Nice. So, my next card is in 96 decks on EDH Rec.
Oh my god.
We talked about how it would be easy to cast Library of Latnam because it only requires 1 blue mana. Well, meet Volcanic Eruption.
Oh, jeez.
Volcanic Eruption costs X, blue, blue, blue. So that's right, at least 4. and it says destroy X target mountains. And more importantly, it keeps going. Volcanic eruption deals damage to each creature and each player equal to the number of mountains put into a graveyard this way. So not only are you hammering away at their mana base, basically practically taking away one of the colors that they're running. Not really. Everybody knows that you've got the dual lands or treasures or whatever, but you're taking away a number of mountains.
Including some of the 2 types or 3 types that have the word written on it. Like, these aren't basic mountains. These are any mountains, which is great.
Oh yeah, you can go after duels. It says destroy X target mountains. This also means you don't even have to pick on one player. You can spread the wealth. If you've made X5, you can take 2 from one guy and 3 from the other. It doesn't matter. Whatever mountains you want to pick, those are the ones that are gone. And then it deals that much damage to each creature. So if you're hitting for even 4, you get 4 mountains. That's 4 points of damage to every creature. You are going to take some creatures off the battlefield. This is one that I genuinely run in decks. I have a copy of it. I rarely get to use it just because of the casting cost. It is a tough cost to get going.
Yeah.
Because for the most part, you do want to spend at least 7 to do it. I've had games where I look around the board and I'm like, oh, it's one person playing red, and they've only got 2 mountains out, and all the rest are, non-basic lands that tap for red but aren't mountains. So, there are times when this thing fizzles. This is definitely one of these cards where, the fact that it's only good against red decks can come back and hurt you. But, man, when this thing hits, it hits hard. It's just nasty. So, volcanic eruption.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out a way to there are like certain ways to make lands other types, and I don't know if it's really worth it in these cases. But this is some pretty good tech against Dryad of Elysian Grove, where it says lands you control are basic, every basic land type in addition to their other types. So
right.
Your opponent has it, then boom, 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 they're all gone now.
And it's only a matter of time until we see an Urborg or a Yavimaya for red.
Yeah, I guess.
And then suddenly everybody's got mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that would be a lot of fun.
This card would definitely just start to see play about that point.
Well, maybe not, because I will say, remember, we are talking land destruction here.
Yeah.
People don't like land destruction.
But if you can, but if you can make it so that it ends the game with that spell, then the land destruction, I guess, at that point isn't really...
It's not really land destruction, it's a means to an end. And so it's ending things quickly.
Right. So I have a question. Because it says destroy X target mountains. So X can only be as many as there are mountains, correct?
That's right.
Like, it can't go any higher?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that would definitely be...
target, so.
Yeah, to be game ending, there has to be that number of mountains out, which is tough. But I could definitely see this, even casting it for 6 and hitting 3 lands. Doing some doing 3 damage to every creature and every player, it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially
3 damage to every creature and every player, and it's costing you 6.
Yeah.
And you could be mono blue.
Haha. And with the surge of treasures, the land destruction doesn't feel quite as bad. But it's fun. I like it.
Yeah.
It's a cute little card.
And like I said, 96 decks on EDH, right?
Man, I guess we're coming to the end. I got one left.
All right.
My last one is Omen. It's 1 and a blue. It is in, let's see. It's currently in 460 decks. It says, Look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. You may shuffle. Draw a card. I like that you get to draw a card after you shuffle. I like that it could, like, you're essentially tutoring the top 3 cards of your library. And if you don't like what you see, you get a random card. It's just it's a fun little gamble. If you don't like what you see, but if you do like what you like, for 2 mana, absolutely, I'll do that. There are so many 2 mana draw 2 cards, but like if you get to choose the card, then it's worth it. You know, I don't know,
right?
And it's enough of not a tutor that it doesn't like just take up, you know, time with shuffling, and you know, there's still a bit of chaos and uncertainty to what's on the top of your deck. Yeah, this card has been printed once, and it was in Portal, which I believe is starter decks.
Yeah.
So it's 22 cents. It's just, I like it. It's got some cool art with a wizard and an orb on a rocky coast with some waves and a castle in the background. It's like very stereotypical high fantasy art. It's great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on this card?
I love the May shuffle is really what makes the card. I mean,
oh yeah, for sure.
You know, if you look at the top 3 and it's just not there for you, then just shuffle it up and draw a card. And the draw card is really just a replacement. So Omen's only costing you 1 and a blue.
Yeah.
That's really the way to look at it. So often people forget to include the cost of the actual card they're holding. You have to spend that card to get the effect. In this case, you don't. You get a replacement. So you're putting something else in your hand, and it should be something better than the Omen, because you're looking at either 3 cards or you're choosing something else at random. So, you know, I like the setup. I'm not sure that I'm going to run this just because there are other instant speed options that may not be as good, but to be able to do it at the end of the turn as opposed to during my turn with a sorcery.
Yeah. I like the thought of using this after somebody ransacks the top of your library.
Yes.
To like quickly look to see what you put there and then just shuffle it away.
Yeah.
But no, I like the shuffle then draw just a little thing. Like I don't even necessarily really care about the first 3 cards. Like if it was just a single blue shuffle then draw, that'd be great.
Oh yeah, there are times when that makes perfect sense. So.
Yeah. That was my last card. Kind of fizzly.
Well, my last. Do I have one more?
You got one more.
I have one more. I think the problem is that I'm tired.
Same.
Yeah. I think we're gonna end this with fatigue.
Oh.
Fatigue costs 1 and a blue. Target player skips their next draw step.
Rude.
That's all. I'm gonna pick a player. You don't get your next draw. It doesn't sound like much, but man, there's nothing worse than watching your draw step go by and you don't even get the default.
Yeah.
You know, everybody. You think about how much effort people put into drawing another card, and all you're doing here is saying, "Nah, you make that effort to just draw the first one, the one that I get to draw for free."
Yeah.
I love the idea of the card, and for 1 and a blue, it's not asking that much. So
it's really tough to take out somebody's singular draw.
And this is a card you can play early.
Yeah.
When people don't already have a way to get another draw.
Yeah.
You are as bad as it is to miss a land drop, missing a card draw, man. You don't even get to try and find the land. You know, it's just straight no. And the earlier you can play a card like this in a game, I think the worse it is for the player. Because it sets them back so badly. So, yeah. Fatigue.
Yeah. It's
I think fatigue goes nicely on an Isochron Scepter.
Oh, God. Get out of here.
You're never drawing on your draw step again.
I don't have any draw cards in this deck. Too bad.
I don't get any draw steps.
Run more draw. Woof.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
So Andy, I'm looking at the clock. I think I can squeeze one more in.
Squeeze it in, buddy.
Yeah, this is bonus territory. Bonus territory. Broken Dam. Now,
Damn.
Yeah, Broken Dam costs 1 blue.
Okay.
And it says tap 1 or 2 target creatures without horsemanship.
I saw this, and
I love this. Now, realistically, obviously, this was a Portal 3 Kingdoms card. So that was a genuine limiter in Portal 3 Kingdoms block deck building. But nowadays, nothing has horsemanship. This just reads tap 1 or 2 target creatures. Period.
And you're not gonna, you're generally not gonna want to do this at instant speed anyway. Like, you're gonna want to do this pre-combat main phase, right before you go to.
If you're doing it at sorcery speed, you want to do it before you go to combat, so you're preventing them from being able to block.
Yeah.
Sure, there are benefits to waiting until an opponent's turn, because then you can tap it before they can attack, and it's still blocked, and it's still tapped when it comes to your turn to go around. But hey, this costs 1 blue.
Yeah, it's
insane. 1 blue. And you're tapping
up to 2 creatures. Yeah.
Right. So you can pick on one opponent and, obliterate defenses, or you can have 2 players. Like, no, this one and this one are both getting tapped, and I'm just going to open you 2 up to everybody else. So now me and the other player who didn't get a creature tapped can now swing in. Or you guys, Johnny, your card is tapped. I just swung at you, but you're not going to swing back at me because I opened up this guy's defenses for you. Go get him. I love the flexibility. I love the options with the card, and it's only in 88 decks on EDH Rec.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. And you probably just said this, but the 2 creatures don't have to be the same owner or same controller. It's nuts.
Yeah. Right, and so you can make this as a way to make your attack more effective, or you can use it politically. Yeah. Tap out other people's stuff to leave them wide open to other folks that are attacking. There's just all kinds of way to use it, and I love cards that have that kind of flexibility. And like I said, it's 1 blue.
I wish that this would be reprinted. This has been printed once, and that was in Portal 3 Kingdoms, so it's $8.
Oh, okay.
But if you've got it, and if it's like one of those cards that you haven't given second thought to, then it's absolutely worth it. But like the thing is we're never gonna see it reprinted because they're not gonna do horsemanship again. You hear people talking about like, oh, maybe they'll bring it back, but like it's just fancy flying. Like it's just different flying, honestly. I don't know if we're gonna see horsemanship again.
Well, it seems unlikely, but you figure they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I was just looking for something that's comparable that would be. There's Frost Breath. It's an instant for 2 and a blue. Tap up to 2 target creatures. Those creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap step. So it's better, but it costs 3 instead of 1. So you pick your poison. So you got 9. You got 9 cards instead of 8.
Kind of 10, really.
You're right.
Kind of 11.
You're right. Yeah, because we threw in Cruel Fate and
the other one.
What was the one you added in?
I Spy.
There we go.
Amazing.
These cards.
Wow. 10 for season 10. That's us. We're halfway through
There we
season
go.
10. Season 10. As somebody who graduated in 2010, this was very much a big thing in high school. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we're on video and you can see us do that. Do cross thing.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact: this is known as the St. Andrew's Cross, and I'm Andrew.
Yes. There we go.
Speaking
There we
of
go.
fatigue,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go take a little nap. But thanks so much for hanging out. We're Temple of False Pod. We're next to not optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun, and we got some cute little cards for you. Check. You just listen to the whole episode. You know what the cards are. I'm Andy.
I'm Bruce.
Thank you again for watching, listening, having us on mute in the background. Play some magic for me, and may your fifth land be the temple.
Bye.
Wait, before you go, I just wanted to say thank you for listening. You can reach out to us via email at falsepodmtg@gmail.com or on Twitter at falsepodmtg. Bruce is at Manaburned, and I'm at Andy Weekend, though you'll definitely notice I use the podcast Twitter far more often. Now that we've got you here, make sure you subscribe, like, rate us on whatever podcast platform you use. It helps us out. It gets us more reach. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Like a video there. Leave some comments for more casual enjoyment. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with some more timeless discussions about all things casual. So come hang out, and may your fifth land be the temple. Bye-bye. Should I do my best, Bruce? Bye!